What if everything you're chasing is already within you, but you're moving too fast to see it? Surrender isn't giving up. It's the most courageous way to live with clarity, strength, and peace. This is the path of presence over pressure, of stillness over struggle. Welcome to your journey with Stoic Grove. What if your greatest strength isn't found in control, but in letting go? We've been taught to chase, fix, and force, but the most powerful transformations happen when we slow down and surrender. This is not about giving up, it's about coming home to yourself. Welcome to Stoic Grove. There's something profoundly strange about life. The more we chase after things, success, love, recognition, the more they seem to slip away. The harder we try to hold on, the faster they escape. It's like gripping sand in your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the more it spills out. And yet, there's this quiet paradox. The moment we stop forcing, the moment we release that iron grip, life doesn't fall apart. It begins to fall into place. It's not chaos that greets us, but clarity. Not emptiness, but alignment. This is the mystery we often overlook, the unexpected power of surrender. And no, this isn't about giving up. It's about giving in, not to weakness, but to the natural rhythm of life. A rhythm that's been pulsing through the universe long before we tried to control it. Today, let's explore what happens when we step back from our need to control and instead choose to trust. What unfolds when we stop obsessing over outcomes? What shifts when we finally loosen our grip and allow life to move in its own way? Because maybe, just maybe, everything we've been chasing is already on its way to us. But we're so busy managing, manipulating, micromanaging that we're standing in our own way. We all face this moment eventually. Maybe it shows up in your work, maybe in your relationships, or even in the pursuit of your deepest dreams. You plan, you push, you pour everything you have into it, and still nothing moves. Doors don't open, effort doesn't translate into progress. So naturally, you push harder. You try to wrestle life into submission, believing that more control will finally get things moving. But here's the twist. What if it's that very effort that's keeping you stuck? What if the more you chase, the more life steps back? It's a strange, painful realization, the kind that only makes sense in hindsight. The harder we push, the more resistance we encounter. And the more we resist that resistance, the more exhausted we become. But then, in our exhaustion, something unexpected happens. Not because we finally found the perfect strategy, but because we've run out of energy to keep forcing things. We surrender, not as a choice, but as a necessity. And suddenly, the tension dissolves. In that quiet space without pressure, life begins to move again. Not because we pushed, but because we finally stopped. You might think surrender sounds weak, like giving up. But true surrender is far from passive. It's a courageous act of openness. It's choosing to trust life without needing to dominate it. It's not giving up your dreams, it's giving up the illusion that you can dictate every detail of how and when they come true. There's a deep wisdom in this kind of surrender. Imagine a river flowing freely to the sea, not by forcing its way, but by yielding to the path carved out for it. It winds, it bends, it moves around obstacles, yet it always gets there. That's how life works when we stop fighting the current and learn to flow. Think of your hand clenched into a fist. It's strong, yes, but it's closed. It can't receive anything new. Now picture that hand open and relaxed. It's ready. That's the essence of surrender, not indifference, but readiness. You're not resigning from life. You're just letting go of the belief that you're the one holding up the sky. Let me tell you about Sarah. She was an artist who spent years grinding away, posting, networking, trying every strategy to make it. But her work felt stiff, her spirit exhausted. Eventually, she burned out. And in that burnout, she did something radical. She stopped trying to succeed. She went back to painting for the joy of it. Just expression. No pressure. No plan. That's when it happened. A gallery owner stumbled across her art. He saw something raw, honest, something she couldn't manufacture before. He offered her a solo exhibition. Just like that, doors she'd been banging on for years opened quietly, naturally. Not because she worked harder, but because she stopped resisting. Her breakthrough came not from force, but from flow. Desire isn't the enemy. To want is human. But when desire turns into control, when we measure our worth by how fast things happen or how neatly they follow our blueprint, we lose our connection to the present. Surrender doesn't ask us to stop dreaming. It asks us to stop strangling our dreams. It's not about giving up on action. It's about shifting the energy behind our action. Acting not from panic, but from purpose. Moving not to prove something, but because we feel called. The difference is subtle, but it changes everything. Surrender is not inaction. It's intelligent alignment. It's like planting a seed. You water it, give it sunlight, but you don't keep digging it up to see if it's growing. So pause and ask yourself, where are you holding on too tightly? What dream are you suffocating under the weight of your own expectations? What path are you forcing instead of allowing to unfold? Maybe the shift you need isn't to do more, but to release more. To let go of the timeline, the formula, the fear. Because we don't always need to know how things will happen. We just need to stay present, to act from alignment, and to trust that letting go doesn't pull us off course. It places us squarely on it. And here's the truth. Sometimes what holds us back the most isn't the world outside us. It's something far quieter, something more intimate. It's resistance, that invisible inner force that rises just as we're about to do something meaningful. It doesn't scream, it whispers, it plants doubt, it feeds fear. It tells us to stay safe, and we listen. Not always consciously, but we delay, we get stuck. Or worse, we sabotage ourselves and call it logic. We convince ourselves that we're being practical when really, we're just afraid. Resistance is clever. It wears many disguises. Sometimes it looks like procrastination. Other times it sounds like the inner critic insisting your dream is foolish. It might feel like sudden exhaustion, or an irresistible urge to clean the house instead of writing that page, starting that project, making that call. Even busyness can be a mask. You check your inbox, you reply to every message. You're productive, right? But underneath it all, you're avoiding the one thing that actually matters. The thing your heart has been quietly calling you toward. That's the tricky thing about resistance. It's clever. It doesn't scream or announce itself boldly. It hides in plain sight, disguised as logic, productivity, or even protection. It tells you it's keeping you safe, when in truth, it's keeping you small. But here's the truth we often miss. Resistance doesn't show up in places that don't matter. It only emerges where something deeply meaningful is trying to be born. That inner struggle isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign of potential. It's like running into a wall in the dark. You don't curse the wall, you recognize it as the edge of something real, something waiting just beyond your comfort zone. And maybe instead of retreating, we need to pause and ask a simple but powerful question. What am I really afraid of? Because resistance, when we trace it to its roots, almost always grows from fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of discovering we're not enough. It's the collision between the part of us that longs to grow and the part that desperately wants to stay safe. That friction isn't a flaw, it's a pulse. It means you're alive. It means something important is stirring. Take Adam, for example. A writer with a head full of stories and a heart full of dreams. He had everything he needed, talent, time, even encouragement. But every time he sat down to write, anxiety rushed in like a storm. What if it's terrible? What if no one cares? What if I fail? So instead of writing, Adam cleaned his apartment, reorganized his bookshelf, reread his old notes. Resistance kept him busy, but far from the page. Then one day, something shifted. He stopped avoiding the fear. He acknowledged it. not as a weakness, but as a sign that he was touching something real. He didn't wait for the fear to vanish. He wrote with it. That's what surrender looks like in the face of resistance. It's not bulldozing through fear. It's recognizing it, sitting with it, and gently choosing to move anyway. Curiosity helps here, so does kindness. Instead of beating yourself up for not doing enough, try asking, what is this resistance protecting me from? Maybe there's an old belief hiding beneath it, a fear that success might alienate you from your loved ones, or that failing will confirm your deepest insecurities. Or maybe it's the terrifying thought that if you give it your all and still fall short, you'll be devastated. These beliefs can be heavy, but they're not unchangeable. When we shine a light on them, they start to loosen. You can even write to your resistance. Let that voice speak. The one that says, don't try, don't risk it. Then write back, not to argue, but to reassure. To say, I hear you, but I'm not staying stuck. Because while staying stuck may feel safe, it's also suffocating. And deep down, you know you weren't born for safety. You were born to express, to explore, to expand. Growth means you'll feel resistance, but it also means you're moving towards something that matters. And the secret? Don't try to conquer resistance. Soften it. Break things down. Big dreams are loud and intimidating, so shrink the scale. Don't write a novel, just write one paragraph. Don't launch a business, just sketch one idea. Don't reinvent your life overnight. Just take one honest step. Resistance feeds off overwhelm. But presence dissolves it. And never forget, feeling resistance doesn't mean you're broken, it means you're human. Every person who has done something meaningful has stood in that same quiet battle. The difference is, they didn't wait for the fear to vanish. They moved with it. They kept breathing. They trusted that freedom lives on the other side of fear. So today, ask yourself not how to get rid of resistance, but what it's trying to teach you. What truth is knocking beneath that tension? Then, with compassion, not force, take one step forward. Because the moment you do, something changes. You reclaim your power, not through domination, but through surrender. Through the quiet, steady courage of moving forward even when fear says stop. And after resistance, there often comes a silence. But not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind, the kind that feels like doubt. You start questioning everything. Is this worth it? Am I even on the right path? Should I keep going? Or is this a sign to give up? And in that swirling uncertainty, the impulse to control kicks in hard. We want to know how it will end. We try to plan our way out of fear. We crave guarantees. But life doesn't work like that. It never did. And maybe, just maybe, it's not supposed to. There's a rhythm unfolding, one far greater than anything we can chart on a planner or project timeline. Effort is vital. Plans are helpful. But they are not everything. There's a larger intelligence at play. Call it the universe. Call it divine timing. Call it what you will. But whatever name you give it, the essence is the same. Something is guiding you that knows more than your anxious mind does. When you trust that, life starts to fall into place in ways that feel almost miraculous. But trust doesn't come easy. It asks you to let go of control, not just in theory, but deep in your heart. It asks you to take steps when the path ahead is foggy, to keep moving when nothing is guaranteed. The mind hates that. The mind wants clarity, blueprints, certainty, but maybe your heart doesn't need clarity. Maybe it just needs connection to something real, something honest. Think of Maya. For years, she searched for purpose like it was a hidden treasure. She read all the self-help books, changed careers, mapped out 5-year plans, but still, something felt off. Until one day, she stopped searching and started listening. Not to experts, not to trends, but to herself. She began noticing what moved her, what made her feel alive. And the answers didn't come in fireworks, they came in whispers, one small decision at a time. Slowly, without fanfare, she found herself doing work that felt deeply aligned, work that didn't just pay the bills but touched her soul. Not because she forced her way into it, but because she trusted the unfolding. That's what trusting life looks like. It's not about waiting around for perfect signs. It's about being open to the nudges, the detours, the unexpected invitations. It's understanding that not getting what you want isn't failure. It's often grace in disguise. It's clearing space for something better to find you. But to receive that, you have to release your obsession with timing. You have to stop comparing your progress to everyone else's. Life doesn't run on your deadlines. It runs on alignment. And when you're truly ready in a way you mightn't even recognize yet, everything can shift in an instant. Not because you chased them harder, but because you became who you needed to be for them to arrive. That's the secret most of us miss. Trusting the process isn't about sitting back and hoping things work out. It's not passive, it's deeply active. Trust is what keeps you grounded in the present, heart open, hands ready. You still show up. You still put in the effort. But now it's not a battle, it's a dance. You're no longer dragging the music forward. You're moving in sync with it. And there's so much freedom in that rhythm. There's peace in realizing life isn't out to get you. It's not testing your worth or punishing your delay. It's shaping you. Every detour is carving character. Every delay is deepening your roots. The things that fall apart, they're not punishments, they're redirections. Closed doors that lead to better openings. Setbacks that prepare you for more meaningful arrivals. But you only see that when you stop forcing the narrative and start listening, truly listening to the deeper story beneath the surface. So ask yourself honestly, where have you been forcing outcomes? Where have you confused effort with progress? Can you trust, not blindly but consciously, that what's truly meant for you is already on its way, carving a path even when you can't see it? Because when you do, when you let go of the timeline, the rigid plan, the need to know every step, you begin to notice a quiet shift, not just in your results, but in your inner state. You feel lighter, more at ease, more yourself. That's the quiet magic of trust. It won't make your life perfect, but it will make it real. And in a world that shouts for perfection, real is rare and beautiful. We're taught that effort is everything, that if we just keep trying, keep pushing, keep grinding, eventually life will reward us. But what if the real key isn't more force, but more space? What if what you need isn't more effort, but more allowing? There's a profound difference between action rooted in fear and action born from alignment. When fear drives us, we hurry. We control. We demand results. We obsess over timelines and metrics. Our sense of worth becomes a scoreboard. We use the future to justify the present. But when we act from alignment, we move differently. There's clarity. There's calm. We're not chasing something outside of us. We're responding to something within us. Allowing isn't inaction. It's deep intelligence. It's recognizing that some things need space, not solutions. Some seasons are for listening, not fixing. And some answers only arrive when the noise inside finally quiets down. Of course, this is hard. We've been conditioned to believe that stepping back is weakness, that allowing means laziness. We've been rewarded for control, for hustle, for taking charge. So letting go feels almost unnatural. But there is a profound discipline in allowing. It takes strength to hold space. It takes courage to not jump in, to not fix, to not demand certainty. It takes wisdom to know when to move and when to step aside. Allowing is trusting, not just the timing, but also yourself. It's not passive waiting, it's mindful presence. You're not ignoring what's happening. You're simply choosing to meet it with awareness rather than anxiety. You're responding, not reacting. That's a different kind of power. One that doesn't clamor for attention, but commands quiet respect. One that doesn't need external validation, but radiates confidence from within. And more often than not, the solutions we're desperately trying to force show up the moment we stop chasing and start listening. Think about how nature grows. A seed doesn't become a tree overnight. It doesn't panic, it doesn't perform. It just unfolds, steadily, slowly, surely. It needs soil, light, time, stillness. Try to rush it, and you risk killing it. But give it space, and it flourishes. The same goes for your dreams, your healing, your relationships. They don't need more pressure. They need more presence, more room to breathe. So maybe the better question isn't, what more can I do? But what can I let go of? Can you let go of needing all the answers right now? Can you stop forcing clarity and start inviting it? Can you spend your energy not on controlling outcomes, but on cultivating clarity? Because something beautiful happens in that space of allowance. You begin to move with life, not against it. You begin to follow your own rhythm, not just the noise of the world. And from that place, quiet, grounded, open, life begins to align. Not because you pushed harder, but because you stopped standing in your own way. So take a deep breath. Let go of the urgency. Let yourself be here fully. You don't have to force what's meant to flow. You don't have to chase what's already on its way to you. Allow it. Trust it. Respond, not with panic, but with presence. And you'll discover this truth. What's meant for you doesn't need to be wrestled into place. It only needs room to arrive. And here's something else we don't always see clearly. Expectations are silent burdens. We carry them everywhere, about who we're supposed to be, how fast we should be growing, what success should look like. They distort our vision. They cloud our joy. And when life doesn't match the script we've been rehearsing in our minds, we don't just feel surprised, we feel betrayed. But often it's not life that failed us. It's our expectations that were never rooted in reality. They were rooted in fear, in comparison, in control. We don't just want life to work. We want it to work our way, on our timeline, with our conditions. And when it doesn't, we feel like something's wrong. But the truth is, rigid expectations create tension, and tension blocks flow. Desire isn't the enemy. Vision isn't the problem. But the moment our desires harden into non-negotiable demands, we start to suffer. We narrow our gaze so tightly that we miss everything outside that narrow frame. Every unexpected blessing, every detour that could lead to magic. There's a quiet power in letting go of expectations. Not because you stop caring, but because you care enough to let things unfold with integrity. You still give your best. You still hold a vision. But you stop needing life to prove your worth. That's not weakness, it's maturity. That's not giving up, it's growing up. Think about how often expectations have fueled your pain. You expected someone to support you, and they didn't. You expected a milestone to bring joy, and it fell flat. You expected progress by a certain time, and it didn't arrive. The pain didn't come from the event, it came from the script in your head. And that's the hidden cost. Expectations tie your peace to things you don't control. They make your joy conditional. So when life veers off your plan, you're left not just disappointed, but disoriented. So what's the alternative? It's not detachment. It's presence. It's staying devoted to the process, not obsessed with the outcome. It's choosing to show up fully, to dream boldly, to act with heart, but to release the stranglehold on how it all has to unfold. You can still work hard, still plan, still hope, but do it lightly. Leave room for grace. Let life surprise you, because often the best things that happen are the ones you never saw coming. So pause. Reflect. What expectations are you still carrying that no longer serve you? What stories have you been clinging to about how your life should look? And what might open up if you loosened your grip on them? Not to fall behind, but to finally come home to what's real. Because when you do, when you truly let go of the need to control every detail, every timeline, every outcome, you'll feel it. A lightness, a spaciousness in your chest. A quiet calm that doesn't come from certainty, but from the willingness to stand inside uncertainty without fear. And in that space, something powerful begins to awaken. Not outside of you, but within you. A freedom, a clarity, a gentle yet unshakable confidence that says, whatever comes, I'll meet it. not with panic or pressure, but with presence. With open hands, not clenched fists, with an open heart, not guarded walls. And that, more than any fixed result or perfect plan, is where peace lives. You begin to see that silence isn't emptiness. Stillness isn't weakness. In fact, those quiet spaces we so often avoid are where transformation truly begins. But most of us rarely make space for stillness. We think it's wasteful. We treat it like a pause between the real moments of life, as if silence is something to rush through rather than lean into. And yet, stillness is sacred. It's where we reconnect, not just with our goals, but with ourselves, with clarity, with something deeper than thought or strategy. True meditation, in its most honest form, isn't about escaping life. It's about arriving fully into it. It's a return to breath, a return to the present, a return to this very moment, without needing it to be anything other than what it is. We carry tension we don't even realize, tightness in our thoughts, in our posture, in the way we move through the day with subtle urgency, like we're always late for something we can't name. Meditation slows us down just enough to notice that tension, to see the noise we've been living inside. And the moment we see it, we soften its grip. You don't need to retreat to a monastery to experience this. You don't need candles or perfect silence or hours of spare time. Just a few moments of genuine presence can shift everything. Sit quietly, close your eyes, feel your breath enter and leave your body. You don't have to control it, just notice it. And when thoughts come, and they will, don't fight them. Let them pass, like clouds across a sky you no longer feel the need to chase. This isn't about silencing your mind. It's about no longer letting your thoughts pull you in 100 directions. Over time, you begin to feel something beneath all the noise, a deeper stillness, a kind of quiet that isn't void but full of awareness, full of life, full of truth. And it's in that awareness that surrender becomes possible, natural, no longer dramatic or forced, just a soft, steady return to what is. You're no longer lost in the future, trying to fix what hasn't happened. You're no longer haunted by the past, trying to change what already has. You're here. Now. Meditation isn't the only way to get here, but it's one of the clearest. It's a teacher that shows you how to release control, not just in theory, but in your nervous system, in your breath, in your being. It opens your heart in a way that allows you to feel again. Not through judgment, but through compassion. From that stillness, new insights emerge. Not through effort, but through space. Not from anxiety, but from alignment. The world is loud. Our thoughts are louder. But there's always a quiet space within you untouched by the chaos. A place of knowing. A place of peace. And the more you touch that space, even for moments at a time, the more your relationship with life begins to shift. You stop reacting to everything. You begin responding with intention, with grace, with depth. You stop trying to fix every discomfort. You start allowing growth to unfold on its own timeline. And that, perhaps, is the greatest shift of all. So when the world pulls at you, when your mind demands more effort, more answers, more speed, pause. Take a breath. Let it out slowly. Remember, your peace does not live in perfect plans or finished checklists. It lives in presence, in trust, in that quiet space where you no longer force, but allow. And when you find yourself carrying expectations about how life should look by now, about who you should be, about where you're supposed to be going, pause again. Ask yourself, are these expectations serving me? Or are they strangling the joy out of this moment? Because expectations can be subtle burdens. They sneak in quietly, disguised as ambition, responsibility, or standards. But underneath, they often come from fear, from comparison, from control. And when life doesn't match the script you've been rehearsing, you don't just feel disappointed, you feel betrayed. Not because reality failed, but because your expectations did. But what if the problem isn't what happened, but what you expected to happen? What if your peace has been tied to a plan that never truly belonged to you? That's the hidden cost of expectations. They make your joy conditional. They tie your worth to things you can't control. And when life inevitably unfolds in unexpected ways, you're left feeling like you've lost, when in truth, something better may be trying to arrive. So what's the alternative? It's not detachment, it's devotion. Devotion to the present, to the process, to the quiet art of showing up fully with your whole heart, but without gripping so tightly to how it must go. It's the decision to hold your vision, yes, but to hold it loosely. Let it breathe. Let life surprise you. Because the best things, the most breathtaking, soul-stretching, heart-opening moments often arrive in ways we never imagined. And we only recognize them when we're not blinded by what we thought should happen. So ask yourself today, what expectations am I carrying that I no longer need? What stories am I clinging to that are keeping me from seeing the beauty right in front of me? What if letting go isn't failure, but freedom? Because when you let go, you return, not to passivity, but to presence. Not to indifference, but to alignment. And from there, life flows again. We often carry tension without even realizing it. In the pace of our thoughts, the tightness in our shoulders, the subtle rush we bring into each moment. It becomes our norm, this quiet urgency, this invisible weight we call being productive. And yet most of the time it's not productivity, it's pressure. Constant background pressure. Meditation helps us see that, not by fixing it, but by slowing us down just enough to notice, to witness the noise we've unconsciously adapted to. And once we see it, we can begin to loosen its grip. You don't need to be a monk to feel the benefits. You don't need a special room, candles, or even complete silence. You just need a few minutes of honest presence. A few minutes where you're not solving anything, not chasing anything, not trying to become someone else, but simply sitting with what is. Close your eyes. Sit still. Feel your breath moving in and out, not changing it, not controlling it, just noticing. And when thoughts come, as they inevitably will, you don't have to follow them. Let them pass like clouds across an open sky. You're not trying to stop thinking, you're just learning how to stop being dragged by your thoughts. And what you'll discover, slowly and gently, is that beneath all that mental chatter is something deeper. A stillness that doesn't feel empty, but alive. Full of awareness, full of quiet, full of you. From this awareness, surrender starts to feel less like a concept and more like a natural return. A coming home, not to some ideal version of yourself, but to the self that already exists beneath the noise. The self that breathes, that observes, that allows. Meditation isn't the only path to this, but it's one of the clearest. It trains the mind to stop clutching. It teaches the body to soften. It gives the heart room to feel again. Not with judgment, but with compassion. And from that space, unrushed, unforced, insights arise. Not because you pushed for them, but because you made room for them. Not from struggle, but from connection. The world is loud. Our thoughts, even louder. But inside you, always, is a quiet space that remains untouched by all of it. A place of deep knowing, of gentle presence. When you touch that space regularly, even for a few minutes, it transforms you. You stop reacting to everything. You begin responding with clarity. You stop needing to fix every uncomfortable feeling. You start trusting that some things are just meant to unfold. That's the true foundation of surrender. Not a theory, not a mood, but a practice. A daily return to presence. A grounded, humble coming back to the self. Not the self filled with deadlines and demands, but the self that watches, that breathes, that allows. The one that knows deep down that peace isn't something to earn, it's something you remember. So ask yourself, can you give yourself 5 minutes today? Just 5. Not to solve your life. Not to think your way into clarity, but to be. To sit with what is, with kindness and without demand. Because the more often you return to that space, the more natural surrender becomes. Not as a concept, but as a way of life. And when surrender becomes a habit, life changes shape. It no longer feels like a system you need to manage. It becomes a rhythm, a conversation, a current you flow with, one breath at a time. We often equate control with strength. The more control we think we have, the more powerful we feel. So we tighten our grip on our schedules, obsess over details, micromanage outcomes. It makes us feel safe, or so we believe. But the truth is, most of our desire for control doesn't come from strength. It comes from fear. Fear of things going wrong, fear of uncertainty, fear of the unknown. And the harder we try to dominate life, the more we lose touch with its natural rhythm. The irony, the tighter we grip, the more things slip through our fingers. Control creates the illusion of safety, but it rarely brings peace. Instead, it brings tension, worry, exhaustion. And when life doesn't follow the script we tried so hard to write, we collapse. We question everything. We call it failure. But did we really fail? Or did we simply forget that we were never fully in control to begin with? This is where surrender becomes not just helpful, but liberating. It challenges our old belief that control equals power. It invites us to explore a different kind of strength. One that doesn't force, but flows. One that doesn't conquer, but adapts. Real power doesn't shout. It doesn't panic. It's rooted. It's quiet. It trusts. That kind of shift, moving from control to trust, is radical. It requires unlearning. Most of us were taught to control everything just to survive. Plan it, predict it, prevent disaster. But life isn't a machine. It's a living process. And processes don't respond well to pressure. They respond to presence. To surrender your need for control is not to abandon your responsibilities. It's not to give up. It's to shift your focus. From forcing outcomes to choosing how you meet them. From trying to make things happen to responding to what's already happening with clarity and intention. This change, it alters everything. Your stress, your relationships, your creativity, your sense of worth. When you move from pressure to presence, from control to trust, life starts to breathe again. So do you. You stop internalizing every challenge as a personal failure. Instead of carrying the weight of every obstacle, you begin to see each moment as an opportunity, a chance to pause, to listen, to adjust, to grow. Because control is rigid, it resists, but surrender is responsive. It bends, and responsiveness is exactly what life asks of us. This doesn't mean you throw away your goals or stop making plans. It means you release your attachment to them. You stop defining your identity by how closely your life matches a checklist. You remember, you are not your achievements, you are not your productivity, you are not the perfect manager of outcomes. You are the awareness behind it all. The quiet witness who can always choose again, who can adapt, course correct, and continue without the crushing burden of perfectionism. So take a breath and ask yourself, where in your life is control tightening its grip? Where have your routines become cages rather than containers? Where are you holding so tightly that ease has vanished? And most importantly, can you soften, even just a little? Because in that softening, you don't lose power, you gain freedom. You gain fluidity, resilience, the ability to pivot and move with life, instead of constantly pushing against it. You become stronger, not because you dominate everything, but because you know you don't need to. That's real strength. The kind that flexes, the kind that listens, the kind that says, I'm not here to conquer life. I'm here to collaborate with it. And in that sacred collaboration, something beautiful happens. Control starts to fade, but it's not replaced with chaos. It's replaced with wisdom, with trust, with a quiet confidence that says, whatever comes, I'll meet it, not perfectly, but fully. There's a paradox most people overlook. The moment you stop needing something to happen is often the moment it begins to show up. Not because life is playing games, but because letting go shifts your energy. It moves you from desperation to presence, from grasping to openness. And in that shift, you create space Space for life to meet you halfway. It's strange how it works. You try, you push, you chase, and nothing moves. But then, in one quiet moment of surrender, you release your grip. You stop demanding, you stop pleading, and somehow things begin to shift. Opportunities appear. Clarity returns. People show up, not always instantly, but the pattern is real. Surrender invites alignment, not because you gave up, but because you gave in. To trust, to timing, to flow. But to truly understand this, we have to go deeper. We have to ask, why do I want what I want so badly? Is it because I believe it will complete me, make me safe, prove I'm enough? So much of our striving doesn't come from inspiration. It comes from lack. From the belief that until we reach that goal, achieve that dream, get that outcome, we cannot rest. We cannot be whole. Surrender breaks that cycle. It says, I can desire deeply and still be whole. I can want more and still be grounded. It separates desire from desperation. And in that separation, freedom is born. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop letting your dreams define your worth. You still show up. You still do the work. But you no longer grip the outcome with white knuckles. You no longer measure your value by how neatly reality fits your expectations. You realize that how you live matters far more than what you achieve. That paradox that letting go leads to more isn't a trick. It's a principle. It's how life moves. Force creates friction, openness creates flow. When you loosen your grip, you return to the present. You reconnect with what's real. And from that grounded place, your decisions become sharper. Your actions become cleaner. You move with clarity, not chaos. Think about how you show up when you're calm, when you're not attached to the outcome, but aligned with your purpose. That energy, it's magnetic. It draws in what belongs, and it lets go of what doesn't. Even when things don't go your way, you don't fall apart. You don't spiral. Because your peace was never tied to the outcome. It was rooted in how you showed up. That's the power of surrender. It returns your life to you, not as a reward for letting go, but as a natural result of presence. You're no longer postponing your peace, waiting for the perfect circumstances. You're living it now. So pause and reflect. What are you gripping that's bringing more tension than movement? What are you afraid will disappear if you stop chasing it? And what would it feel like to want something deeply, but not need it to prove your worth? That shift changes everything. It doesn't kill your passion. It doesn't dull your ambition. It grounds it. It reminds you that you are already enough. That life is not a race to win, but a rhythm to join. And from that space, free, centered, present, what's meant for you often finds its way, not because you forced it, but because you were finally ready to receive it. And nowhere is this more evident than in our relationships. Because relationships, especially the ones that matter most, can become mirrors for our deepest control patterns. Without realizing it, we try to mold people into what we want them to be. We expect them to think like us, feel like us, respond like us. We want them to meet our needs instinctively, without being asked. And when they don't, we don't always react with grace. Frustration creeps in. We begin correcting, managing, even manipulating, often with the best intentions. But at the root of this behavior isn't control for the sake of control. It's fear. The fear of rejection, of disconnection, of not being understood, of not being enough. But here's what surrender teaches us. Love is not control. Love doesn't mean reshaping someone else to match your comfort zone. It means holding space for who they are, not who you want them to be. It's allowing people to be fully themselves, even when it stretches your comfort, even when it challenges the insecurities you've tried so hard to hide. Surrender in relationships doesn't mean silence. It doesn't mean avoidance. It means letting go of the illusion that closeness requires control. True connection breathes. It thrives on freedom, not pressure. The more you try to manage how someone shows up, their words, their timing, their emotions, the more strain you place on the relationship. And ironically, the more you try to force emotional safety by controlling the situation, the less safe the connection becomes. Because people, like all living things, need space. Space to feel, space to grow, space to be real. And that space only exists when we stop clinging to our assumptions about who they should be and start accepting who they actually are. Now, surrender doesn't mean tolerating dysfunction. It doesn't mean accepting harm or giving up your boundaries. It means recognizing the difference between expressing your needs and trying to control the outcome, between holding someone accountable and trying to rewrite their entire personality, between loving someone for who they are and resenting them for not becoming your version of who they should be. There's a strange and quiet beauty in letting go of the script you wrote for someone else, in meeting them, not as a future possibility, but as a present truth. It doesn't mean you stop caring. In fact, you might begin to care more deeply. Because when you surrender the need to fix or mold, you begin to truly listen. You soften. You become less reactive. And in that softening, understanding has a chance to emerge. Conversations shift. Conflicts transform. It's no longer about who's right or wrong. It becomes about clarity, about truth, about connection. You stop trying to win. You start trying to understand. And from that intention, something more fulfilling begins to grow. Something deeper than anything you could have forced. Because now the relationship isn't built on performance. It's built on presence. You show up, not perfectly, but honestly. And they show up too, just as they are. So take a breath. Reflect. Where in your relationships are you holding too tightly? Where are you trying to control the narrative out of fear? And what might shift, not if you let go of the person, but if you let go of the pressure? The answer might feel uncomfortable at first. But beneath discomfort, there is freedom. The freedom to feel what's real. The freedom to love without clinging. To relate without armor. To stay soft, even when the world urges you to harden. And when two people meet from that space, moment by moment without demand or disguise, something sacred happens. Not because they own or control each other, but because they honor each other. They choose understanding over manipulation, presence over pressure. And in that kind of surrendered love, something lasting takes root. Not the power of possession, but the strength of presence. And that presence, that deep awareness of the now, is where everything real begins. But the present moment is so often overlooked. We rush through it, distracted, reaching for what's next, regretting what's past. We try to manage 1,000 possible futures, while forgetting that the only place life is ever actually happening is here. Now, this is the only space where joy can be felt, where clarity can be found, where love and transformation can take root. But to live in the present asks something rare of us, to surrender the need to mentally escape it. We escape in subtle ways. Overplanning, scrolling endlessly, replaying old conversations, worrying about tomorrow. Our minds race ahead, convinced that the next moment must hold more value than this one. But the truth is, the next moment is just another now. And if you don't know how to be present with this one, you'll miss every one that follows. Surrendering to the present doesn't mean you give up your dreams. It doesn't mean you stop preparing. It means you stop resisting. You stop arguing with what is. You stop expecting the moment to be anything other than what it is. And when you do, something softens. The inner noise lessens. You breathe a little deeper. You feel a little clearer. You realize that most of your suffering didn't come from the moment itself, but from your refusal to fully enter it. This moment right now is where your true power lives. Not in your memories, not in your expectations, right here. When you're fully present, you make better decisions. You connect more honestly. You create with authenticity. You're no longer scattered across imaginary timelines. You're grounded. You've returned to your center. And no, the present isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it's uncertain. But even then, beneath the discomfort, there's something steady. a stillness, a quiet knowing. The more you learn to return to it again and again, the more resilient you become. Not because life gets easier, but because you become more anchored. We often wait for peace to arrive after everything else lines up. We think once things calm down, once I achieve this, once they change, then I'll be okay. But peace doesn't wait for the perfect life. It waits for your presence. It waits for you to stop postponing yourself. Peace lives in the moment you stop saying, "I'll feel okay when," and start saying, "I choose to show up now." Because now is where everything happens. Now is where your power begins. Every insight, every shift, every spark of courage, creativity, or connection, it all begins in a single place, the now. And when you surrender to it, not because it's easy, not because it's flawless, but because it's real, you begin to move through life with more grace, more clarity, and more quiet strength than you ever imagined possible. So ask yourself gently, where are you right now? Not physically, but mentally, emotionally, energetically. Are you here? Or are you lost in a future you cannot control or a past you cannot change? If you're not here, come back. Come back to the breath, to the rise and fall in your chest, to the subtle weight of your feet against the floor. Come back to what's real, to this moment. Because this moment, imperfect and ordinary as it may seem, is not something to rush through. It's something to inhabit, something to live. And when you live it fully, you begin to understand that surrender isn't just about letting go of control. It's about returning to yourself, to your body, to this breath, to now. So much of what we chase, peace, purpose, clarity, connection, is already within reach, not hidden, not out there, but here within. The reason we miss it is not because it's elusive. It's because we're moving too fast, gripping too hard, trying too desperately to shape life into something it was never meant to be. And in all that effort, we forget. Surrender isn't giving up. It's tuning in. It's choosing to meet life where it actually is, not where we wish it was. It's realizing that we don't have to carry everything alone, that we were never meant to. That control isn't the gateway to freedom. Presence is. Yes, forcing things might give you short-term wins, but only surrender leads to lasting alignment. The kind of alignment that not only shifts what you experience, but transforms who you are while you experience it. So maybe the deeper question isn't, what do I need to make happen? But what am I being asked to let go of? What belief are you still clinging to that's keeping you small? What outdated expectation is robbing you of peace? What illusion of control is standing between you and the joy that's waiting quietly to be felt? And what would happen if just for a moment you softened your grip, slowed your pace, allowed life to meet you exactly where you are? This isn't a philosophy to admire from afar. It's a practice, a path, a way of being in the world that's honest, grounded, and brave. Because yes, it takes courage to stop pushing. It takes strength to be still. And it takes trust to believe that what's truly meant for you will never need to be forced. So as you move back into your day, carry this truth with you. Surrender is not the end of effort. It's the beginning of real power. The kind that moves with life, not against it. That doesn't demand, but invites. That doesn't control, but co-creates. That doesn't panic, but trusts. Start there. Start now. One breath at a time. One moment at a time. Surrender. Not because you're weak, but because you're finally ready to live from your deepest strength. And if this journey spoke to something within you, share it. Reflect on it, revisit it in the moments you forget. Because surrender isn't a destination, it's a rhythm, a remembrance, a quiet returning. And life, again and again, will whisper, let go. In a world that constantly tells us to push harder, chase faster, and control more, the quiet strength of surrender reminds us of something deeper. That real power lies not in force, but in presence. When we let go of the need to control everything, we don't lose ourselves. We find ourselves. We stop reacting. We start responding. We stop striving to be enough and begin to realize we already are. Surrender isn't weakness, it's the deepest kind of courage. It's the choice to meet life as it is with open hands and an open heart. And in doing so, we invite peace, purpose, and clarity, not as distant goals, but as living truths in the here and now. If this message resonates with you, if you're on a path of growth, awareness, and grounded wisdom, subscribe to Stoic Grove. Join a community that values stillness over struggle, clarity over chaos, and living deeply over merely getting by. Let this be your space to return, reflect, and remember, you don't have to force life to live it fully. Subscribe now to Stoic Grove and start living from your truest strength.